Right. So just an overview of tonight's agenda. We'll briefly go through some introductions. Myself, my name is Nikki Naismith, and I will go ahead and introduce the other hosts. Our panelists will also then join us to discuss a few topics, including their experiences at SLU, a little bit about themselves, some advice to current students, and we'll also leave room for some Q&As. We prefer that the Q&A section be left until afterwards. And at the end, there'll be a wrap up for anything that's left untouched. So again, my name is Nikki Naismith. I am a career specialist here at SLU. I work in the Office of Career Development. And one of my goals and, a lot of my work revolves around engaging current students, former students around professional development. So career coaching, job searching, perfecting and crafting resumes and cover letters. We host various events, and we also assist with LinkedIn. I also have a specific focus on public and civil service. And yeah, I'm looking forward to tonight's discussion. I'm going to pass it along now to Shanair Williamson.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Shanair Williamson, and I'm also a career specialist here at SLU. So all things that Nikki said +1, but also just really here to help current students and then also alumni in navigating their career journey, whether that might be career exploration or actually securing that job following graduation. So here to provide direct support, one-on-one counseling sessions, but also hosting a lot of events that we welcome all of you to attend. So I'll turn it over to Laura.
Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Laura Meltzer. I am an alumni of SLU from the class of 2015 with the MA in Labor Studies and also the Advanced Certificate in Labor Studies from 2013 via the Union Semester Program. I'm currently the Alumni Association Coordinator at SLU, and I'm so happy to be hosting this event with Nikki and Shanair. I'm excited to introduce our two alumni today. So go ahead, Nikki.
Thank you, Shanair. Thank you, Laura. Also, we have our contact information listed below. I'll drop it in the chat in case you want to connect with us. Feel free. We have our career services email and our alumni association email. And I'm going to now, our panelists for tonight are Kaylee Truman, who is a former labor studies student. And we also have Maya Rosenberg, who was part of our union semester. I'm so again, grateful to have them here. And I look forward to, engaging a bit more and hearing more about their experiences. And I will now turn it over to Kaylee to, briefly introduce herself.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for the invitation to participate tonight. My name is Kaylee Truman, they, them. I am a stagehand on and off Broadway. I am a member of IATSE Local 1. We're the first entertainment union in the country, not that we'll let you forget it. And I do, in addition to working full-time as a freelance stagehand, so from anywhere from Broadway, Madison Square Garden, Lincoln Center, I also have, I'm also a mental health advocate for my industry and the greater labor movement. So I graduated in December of 2021, and I started the master's program like 6 weeks before COVID hit. So the master's degree was a huge part of me getting through the pandemic as well as I did. So thank you so much.
My name's Maya. I graduated from union semester in 2017. And since then, I have been working as a digital strategist for various orgs. At the moment, I'm working for Long COVID Justice and exist in the wider world of healthcare activism, whether it's hanging out in databases or writing emails, or God forbid, hanging out in the hell pit that is Twitter. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Maya and Kaylee. So we're gonna navigate a little bit and discuss more about your career, your current careers. So I think that's Shania.
Sure. So in terms of current position and how long you've been there, love for you to just share, what it is that you're doing now, what life after SLU has looked like, and just what's led you to the current role. And most importantly, what's the most rewarding part of the job?
So I currently still freelance as a stagehand. It is very much it's either feast or famine when it comes to work. I did just do 2 weeks covering a position on & Juliet on Broadway. If you're looking for a fun bubblegum yet very inclusive show, it's incredible. The most bad pop music I've listened to since the early 2000s. But I've also been doing just a lot of outreach and prep work for there's 2 different conferences I'm heading to or speaking at in the next couple of months, and I really credit my time at SLU for getting me to be more engaged in the greater labor movement. My union, as great and supportive as it is, tends to think it's kind of a one-trick pony and forget that we're a part of a larger labor movement, specifically in such a union town as New York City. And so I've really come to enjoy as much union involvement as I can have. I go to the UALE Women's Summer School every year. I'm actually a member of their membership committee nationally. And I teach like at an all-girls pro-labor summer camp that does events throughout the year. That's called Tools and Tiaras, which is amazing. And as I've said, I'm a mental health advocate, so I'm actually going to be working with a behind the scenes. I teach mental health first aid monthly, and I'm also going to be speaking at a national conference for the National Council of Mental Wellbeing. They have a mental health first aid summit every year, and I'm going to be one of the panelists this year, so that'll be in April. So I've been a full-time stagehand for over 12 years now, and I've had my union card for 8, I think. All the years blend together. So it was interesting doing my degree during COVID because it gave me a chance to concentrate on that. Because being a stagehand is such a huge part of my identity that being able to concentrate on being a student for a while was actually really rewarding and something I'm very grateful for.
Awesome. Thank you. Maya, same question to you.
I've been at my current position for a relatively short amount of time. But the main stuff I do at the moment is a lot of email campaigning and organizing our members, not on the back end. God forbid I actually have to talk to them, but in our databases. There's a reason I do digital stuff, not not face-to-face things. But one of the things that I've enjoyed the most and have always enjoyed the most is getting to work with other organizations and work with them on coalescing around the message that we want to send out into the world, especially with the organizations that operate on both a local and national level. It can be really interesting to integrate all the different work that people are doing and different organizations are doing, and try to figure out the best way to bring people into that work with a sort of unified message, and continue to build our base. When I graduated from union semester, I went to Brooklyn College to get my degree in linguistics. And one of the things I most interested in is looking at communication infrastructures and how we are able to best utilize those infrastructures, particularly in activist spaces, and all of these different ways that we have to connect to each other. Some of my most recent research, because I'm one of those awful academic people, has in fact focused a lot around how we've shifted the way we connect to each other since the pandemic, and how things have become a lot more virtualized. I think that's a word. I say it's a word. You know what I mean. And so now that we're looking at these new ways that we connect to each other, how can we capitalize on that in the best way possible so that we can move our goals forward in the most productive way we can. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I probably will have some follow-up questions for you both, but I want to turn it over to Laura with the next section, and I think we can make the connection there.
Awesome. Thanks, Shanae. Yeah, so hey everyone, welcome again. So I also am, thinking of those follow-up questions and took some notes on what you two were saying. There's a lot there, and I think it really speaks to the diversity, right? Like of thought and aspirations that you both have. So that's very cool. It's very nice hearing about it. I'm just gonna kind of roll back a little and ask you both to talk a little bit more about your experience at SLU / the Murphy Institute, as right. I know that Maya for sure has come from that era, and probably Kaylee as well, at least a touch of it, if I have your timeline correct. So what was that like, right? I think we have some current students on. I know we definitely have some alumni here on who probably want to know about that. So tell me a little bit about the SLU experience. What was it like taking classes, going to school, and of course, in the sense of your trajectory, how has your education impacted your career and your activism?
And not to keep jumping in first, I figure just keep the order the same, make it easy. SLU was very much probably the best decision I've made for my career in the 15 years plus of working professionally. Started to get into labor education through the UALE Women's Summer School, and those 5 days of the summer program were the best 5 days I had up until I joined SLU. And what SLU gave me, just in terms of education, kind of even separating it from the timeline of it being what I did during the pandemic, it gave me the opportunity to fill in so many of the gaps kind of left unaddressed by my union. As I said, my union has a very long 140-year plus history, but again, it's very, I say this lovingly, self-involved. So it was hard to engage with any workers outside of my direct union. And it kind of felt like it was a missed opportunity. Like when I work at Madison Square Garden, there are 27 labor unions that work in that building. And I could name 2 of them, maybe. So during my time at SLU, getting a framework of learning labor history and learning what was happening in the greater labor movement when my union was founded, connecting that to our history. And then just finding ways that a lot of people think of the labor movement having been something incredibly tied to the civil rights movement, but almost being a thing of the past because of the decline of unionism. And the degree just really helped me put that into a framework of labor is never going away. The labor movement might slow, but it's never going anywhere either. And it really, at the heart of it, I would say it really hammered home my agency as a member of that movement. I may be just an individual in a greater union, in a greater international union, but I have a lot of agency and power just being a interested and educated worker. And since the degree, I've really tried to utilize that agency that I've had all along and didn't utilize for so long.
Couldn't find the microphone there, but yeah, so I actually, prior to going to union semester, I'd been involved in organizing this annual digital strategy conference called Organizing 2.0 that had been hosted at Murphy for many years prior to me even being involved with it. And it primarily targets union staffers and other people involved in the labor movement. And that's how I met, I think I met Laura at that point, as well as with some other Murphy, I'm saying Murphy, I know it's not called that anymore, Murphy staffers, and they were the ones who encouraged me to do union semester. And I'm very glad I took their very good advice. A lot of wise people over there. And what was really wonderful was this education I got of yes, of like the labor movement generally speaking, and from a national standpoint, but also like getting a really solid sense of what the current New York City labor landscape was. And while most of the work I do now is not labor focused, as I said previously, most of my professional work and most of my volunteer work, and oftentimes I can make those two things be the same, if I'm lucky, revolves around healthcare activism, particularly around getting the New York Health Act passed. And I found myself repeatedly being somebody, like being the person in the room who has the most knowledge of New York's current labor landscape, which really should be something that strikes fear into the hearts of all, because it's been a few years since I've been actively have my finger on the pulse of it. But nevertheless, it's been really if you are at all planning to stick around the New York City activist spaces, whether from a labor standpoint or not, having that background, because you'll see it on all the slogans. New York is a union town. It's not really not just a slogan, like that is fucking fact. As everyone who goes to SLU will know, having that background has been so useful, and honestly crucial to some of the work I've ended up doing, especially from a communications standpoint, and being able to liaise with leadership at various unions like NISNA and UFT. And I'm also still involved in digital training, particularly aimed at labor folks. And so having a general sense of where people are coming from and the kind of politics that they're dealing with is still very useful. And I really do credit my education at Murphy, both in the classroom and on the field. At the time I was working for, my internship was with New Strong Women, which isn't a union in itself, but places women as a apprentices at a number of the local labor unions. So it involved a lot of communication with the carpenters and electricians and local one and plumbers, etc. I don't know. I don't know if you can tell, but I am not a tradeswoman because I don't know any of the terms, but I did at one point have a better handle on it. Anyway, so I think both, so having those two branches of education, the internship and the classroom education, were really crucial, as well as hearing from your classmates, like what they were up to, what they were witnessing, and sort of seeing that I'm finding myself going back to that education on a very regular basis, even if my main career now is not as a union staffer or as a labor focused activist or organizer.
Thanks for that, Kaylee and Maya. I think you both bring out a really wonderful point. One thing I think that Nikki and I get a lot from our students who are looking for work and they contact the career services department is, how do I even find that first job once I graduate, or once I leave SLU? And I think it would be helpful, just both of you having that experience, any tips or takeaways of what students should be doing as they hope to navigate that transition.
Oh, wait, I just, before I I'll put it in the, sorry to cut you off. I'll put it in the chat.
That's okay, Nick.
It's really funny. My two comments would be my first thought is any position you get can be a labor position or an organizing position. One of my close friends from SLU who graduated with me, Amy, she's now one of the organizers for Trader Joe's, and she just texted me earlier this week, just going, woohoo, NLRB board complaints, labor violations, woohoo, about filing all of these charges. And so my instinct is to say, if you are finding it difficult to get into an already established union or looking for a larger union job, my first comment, maybe look at the areas that need organizing. Look at the new beginning or even worker organizations, not just strict unions, but labor centers and stuff like that. See where your skills can begin to make the most change. And then there's also the level of also making your own opportunities outside of employment. Obviously, employment is incredibly important and everything else. But think about how you can also get involved in outreach and stuff like that as well. Obviously, we all want to be paid for our time and everything and whatnot, but you can also eventually make your own opportunities. And so even if you end up finding yourself in a survival job or what have you for the time being, there are still plenty of ways you can stay and continue to be active while you're finding your niche that you can make a greater impact.
Pesky microphone again I would say it keeps moving on me. It absolutely does not. That's one of the things about Zoom. It pretty much stays the same. But anyway, Amy is a great example, speaking of creating your own opportunities, of choosing to go find someplace that needs some organizing. I think something that becomes very tempting when you are in the thick of the learning part and are in the middle of and are surrounded by all of these wonderful people who are involved in the labor movement, is I want to go be a union staffer, right now. That's what I want to do. It's the only thing I want to do. And and that's a totally valid career choice. But also, as I think both Kaylee and Laura would tell you, that's not an easy job. But more than that, the education that you end up with is going to be applicable in many more ways than just ending up as a union staffer. And I think it's totally acceptable, even if what it ends up being is you end up being involved in, as a volunteer for local organizing efforts or on local campaigns, being the person who already has formed some of the relationships with local labor leaders, and can continue to build on that, so you can be one of the people that is involved in that aspect of it. Like, that's going to be a wonderful thing, even if whatever you're working like as an admin assistant or working as a clerk at the supermarket, like whatever. Your job doesn't have to be your life. I don't think I'm talking to anyone that doesn't know that. But I think, speaking of the relationships, I was lucky enough that because of the work I had done prior to coming to SLU and the folks that I met while I was there, I was able to build on some really wonderful connections that has kept me plugged into the world that has kept me employed, mainly because wonderful people they may be, but they really hate Action Network. So that's why I keep getting paid. So I think actively trying to form those relationships is going to be really key to anything that you want to do afterwards, whether it's for finding employment or to stay connected in general to that scene. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and just to kind of tug back at threads I think you both were mentioning, just the notion of making connections with one another, right, and other folks that are at SLU. And if I caught that right, I think, Kaylee, that your friend Amy is known by Maya, unless Maya is just very excited about someone that she doesn't know. But that's like a beautiful thing. Just that the continuous network that we may not even realize connects. And I think that's an important part to underscore. And Maya, you're saying you're not necessarily like a labor tradeswoman, right? And your experience in union semester may have brought you to non-traditional, right, like outcomes for someone who might have entered union semester, trying to become a union staffer, right? But regardless, the value taken is going to be different for everyone, right? And Kaylee, you come from it from a unique place as well, because not a lot of people are actual members of the unions who are then, pursuing activism in that way. It's a rare thing. It's a rare and beautiful thing. Like, there's, from my experience, I guess, of someone who's interested in pursuing the labor movement, it has often been someone from the outside, trying to get in and understand and navigate, and perhaps project their ideas of how things should be, on a union whose culture they're just getting to know, right, for the first time. And so it's like it's just a different world, right, from someone who's coming from the outside in. So yeah, I just wanted to underscore really those two things, and just to say that part of Make the Plug, the efforts of the Alumni Association, is to highlight these connections that people have and to, I guess, discover them, to have a platform so that these networks, these connections can continue to grow, and, hopefully blossom into things not just for our school, but for, you folks as individuals as well. So right. Should we flip it back and see if folks have questions? Did we have another segment to go over?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much. This conversation has been great so far. You know, we want to encourage anyone, if anyone has any questions, please, you know, feel free to jump in.
How about if Kaylee, Maya, Kaylee, if you have questions for one another, if there's anything that comes to mind there and you want to say? Well, if I can just blow up your spot then, because you did have a mutual friend. Can you tell me both how you know whoever Amy is? Thanks.
Amy and I shared probably like half of our classes together during our masters. We both started in the same class, and there very quickly became a core group of 4 of us that were all like the kids that were there like 45 minutes early to our first class, sitting there re-going through the book going, oh God, why? What do you mean 100 pages of reading a night? And Amy doesn't come from a traditional union background or isn't a current member of a union yet, and was just such an advocate and so labor union and just organizing oriented. And it just, her passion for it always just kind of blew me away, because I grew up in a union family, and it was just always not a given that you would be in a union, but given that you knew about them, and it was an awareness. And between her master's research work for her capstone and just her like strides trying to help organize a new venue, Amy is just one of my single favorite people that I got to know during SLU. She is absolutely wonderful and a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, as I heard your timing of when you were doing your master's, I was like, oh, I bet she knows Amy, who I know actually from DSA organizing. We were members of the North Brooklyn branch organizing committee together, and she reached out because she was like, hey, way to be the only women. Yeah, she's my favorite anarchist friend. We disagree on so many things, but in only the best ways. Yeah, talk about like organizer at heart. And so like what you were saying, Kaylee, about sort of making your own opportunities. I think she is a master of that, especially for, like you said, like not having come from that world initially. Yeah, I guess goes to show you, I was like, you know, everyone's involved in all of these different channels, and there's like sometimes it feels like this very big wide world and there's so many people in it, and then sometimes you're like, no, everyone knows everyone. Everyone knows all of the people involved.
As a funny anecdote, when I was still debating, I'm like, do I want to do the labor certificate? Do I want to go back to school 10 years out of undergrad? And I was still really debating it. One of my mentors in my uni was like, look, just come to this event. You might know a couple of people from the UALE summer school, which we had only just finished like 2 months beforehand. So I'm like, oh, yay, people. I got there, and meeting everybody, I realized I knew half of SLU's admission team already. I knew half of the people that were looking at like admitting students, and I'm like, oh yeah, it'd be kind of stupid for me not to apply. What it's for being such a huge world out there, it really is. You will be shocked who you run into, and the connections you make in school will, at the absolute very least, be a supportive community for you going forward back into your career and industry communities.